The developers of Star Citizen are about to test 200-player servers. This will effectively double the current player count. However, the Star Citizen experience on 100-player servers is still struggling with bugs and stability issues. Let's talk about that and some other crazy things happening on the horizon. Now, the unofficial / leaked news coming from CIG's Evocati testers is that private 200-player server testing is either currently or about to be underway. Once this leak broke to the wider player base, the obvious point was made that the current 100-player servers are still very buggy in many ways, with the AI NPCs often non-functional due to the limited server overhead, along with a litany of other bugs. So why push the player count even further? One likely reason is to find the actual breaking point of their current server tech. Ultimately, CIG wants to cram as many players as possible into a single server shard before needing to spool up a second server once their server meshing tech is up and running. Ultimately, CIG wants to maximize the efficiencies to use the least amount of servers possible while also providing a good playable experience. So finding these breaking points is important, though the previous bump last year from 50 players to 100 players felt like that point was already found. Now, another likely reason for this test is just implementing new backend tech. The newer persistent system that was launched with the 3.18 update is the first stepping stone to the replication layer and server meshing tech, so perhaps this test is also further testing out more of the server meshing tech. This, in my opinion, would be one of the more exciting possibilities. Like with the current tech, the idea of 200-player servers seems kind of impossible, but if, say, the AI NPCs or other things were offloaded to a different server and then meshed together, perhaps that 200-player count seems more reasonable. With the latest projection for server meshing tech being tested by the end of the year, maybe this is the start of that, or maybe that projection is just going to get pushed back further. Server meshing isn't going to roll out as a feature-complete update, but more likely as an iterative approach where we first see, say, planet groups existing on their own servers, and then so on and so forth, with more and more things being broken up to different server groups. The upgrade from 50 players to 100 players that we saw last year came out of nowhere with hardly any lead up or announcement, and then bam, it was on the live servers. So it's possible that this will get tested briefly in Evocati and then pushed to live without much warning, which would be wild to see Star Citizen go from 50 player servers in 2022 to 200 player servers in 2023. That would certainly be impressive progress. But even if the performance, tick rate, and stability issues were solved, it would bring up some other scalability issues that even the 100-player servers we play on now have shown to be an issue. Not enough landing pads, mission points overlapping, terminal congestion, large-scale event scaling problems, and other features that tend to break down simply because the current universe has design problems when you start increasing the player count. For example, if you've ever entered a bunker or even a box drop-off location only to emerge from that location or base with your ship in ruins outside. The most likely reason for this is that a group of pirate NPCs were spawned overhead for someone else's mission, and they just decided to attack your landed spacecraft while you're away. The frequency of this happening has scaled up dramatically with 100-player servers, and I would imagine that it would get even more frequent with 200-player servers, let alone landing issues due to lack of available landing bays at popular destinations. And pretty much all of the large-scale events like Xenothreat and Invictus Launch Week have brought these 100-player servers to their knees with legendarily bad performance and stability. Nonetheless, increasing the player count is a necessary step to show the flaws and cracks in the game design so that it can be fixed and refined. And if we've learned anything from the Star Citizen development process, this is going to be a bumpy road for both players and developers. Currently in the live experience, there's many reports of invisible players running around and killing the FPS combat experience, and new duplication glitches allowing players to make massive amounts of money by exploiting the system. So even the current state of things isn't what anyone would call smooth sailing. Personally, I hope this 200-player server test is actually more in line with getting server meshing tech online. The holy grail, the silver bullet bullet tech that this game needs to realize the massive scale and multi-system experience. Now that's one of the bigger, more complex issues that Star Citizen needs to solve for the grand vision of the game. But even the smaller aspects of Star Citizen have become much more complex than most people anticipated. Last week's Inside Star Citizen showed off a new trespassing system that'll allow players to shoot trespassers on their spaceships without getting a crime stat. It sounds simple enough on the surface, but when the devs actually explained how the system works and the complexity of this rule system, it became clear just how much work it is to even implement a small quality of life upgrade. CIG has approached Star Citizen with the goal of doing things right and not taking shortcuts or faking the experience, which has given fans a universe of unparalleled realism and immersion while also guaranteeing an extremely long development time due to, well, doing things correctly, quote unquote. Now later this week, CIG is going to show off the future plans for Port Olisar, Star Citizen's first major space station. Fans are extremely protective of this station as its now dated design is arguably more streamlined than many of the larger stations that require ship hangars and elevators. I'm very curious to see what CIG does here because Port Olisar is a great example of how new isn't always better. It's still a favorite destination and even preferred home base of many pilots due to the speed and efficiency at which you can trade, gear up, land, and take off. Now, one of the biggest events happening this year for Star Citizen is the first in-person CitizenCon since 2019. The pandemic shut down most major gaming events, including E3, which may be a permanent closure, but CitizenCon is coming back in October and with a much heftier price tag, $200 for basic admission and $300 for the premium experience, which includes an after party. This has left many fans upset, especially considering that it takes place in LA and will require probably some fairly costly hotel fees and travel fees. Some have compared it to other gaming events that are less expensive. However, I'm personally not that surprised. The project still needs funding to move forward, so using CitizenCon as a fundraising event versus a cover the cost event makes much more sense to me. And as someone who has been to many gaming conventions, well, these prices actually don't seem that out of the ordinary. In fact, these prices line up almost exactly with the EVE Online yearly convention. Hopefully this price feels worth it for the fans, and I have no doubt that CIG is going to sell out at these price points. And I'm sure that the major presentations will all still be live streamed for everybody to enjoy at home. Now beyond that, I'm awaiting the 3.2 update for Star Citizen that's getting more and more feature rich as time goes on. The Hull C and Arena Commander updates seem like pretty big deals that are going to get me back into the game probably much more regularly. I haven't been playing Star Citizen as much lately due to, well, 3.18 kind of killing my interest in the game for a while, and also a Diablo 4 addiction, and now BattleBit just being this amazing Battlefield replacement title. It's just eating up all my gaming. But I hear 3.19 has become much more stable, so I'm planning to hop back on for a bit. Let me know what you guys think about the 200-player server tech. Do you think it's just to find a new breaking point for the current tech, or do you think that there might be some secret server meshing tech behind it as well? Let me know in the comments, and next up, check out this video on a large-scale mining operation in Star Citizen. It's pretty fantastic what you can already do with some of the group activities in the game. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.